What up, everybody? I'm in my car right now doing a live report for all of you who care and want some additional news. A tight 10 coming right at you from my car. Yeah, people like to know, am I in the void? Where am I? I'm all over the place, guys. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep you guys updated as much as I possibly can from wherever I can. I'm actually staying somewhere right now where there's just not any rooms available, and I've got kids sleeping. So you got me from a car, and that's the best I can do. Let's get into it. Left off. We left off at a really good place. We left off where Ricky Pearsall had some knee swelling with the PCL injury. I don't think we need to belabor this. So many people have already heard about this, but that was my initial concern when I saw a sleeve or soft brace on his knee, was that, hey, there's probably swelling or there's something that's off. I've gone through the knee injuries myself, so I just felt like I had a feeling about it. And now, lo and behold, I think that we're probably going to get a notification sometime in the next day or so that, hey, this guy's going to be out for the season. So that boosts up Dejon Stribling. Obviously, they signed Deebo Samuel, which we'll get to a little bit later. But from my initial viewpoint, I think that Dejon Stribling is just going to be guaranteed more playing time. People have talked about how he's been able to rotate between the F and the Z and the X. Even if Deebo's there, I can see them potentially putting him in the Z role at some point anyway. So I'm still in on him, especially at his cost. If he started to go up really high, that I would obviously be a little bit less interested, because I'm not like really into his profile per se, but I am interested in, hey, this guy's going to be playing in the 49ers offense. So that's kind of why I'm interested in him. There's some injury info on Jordan James. It sounds like he had a rib fracture and will miss time. Jeff Mueller, really good injury analyst, was talking about it. He said it's roughly going to be 2 to 3 weeks with a return wearing a flak jacket. I've talked about this on some other pods too, but I'm not as concerned as probably others are about him missing time, because he's in a battle with another guy, Kalen Black, who obviously isn't missing time right now, but hasn't had that full year of time already to acclimate himself to the team and have reps doing pass protection and pass catching, and running routes. And so I think, obviously he's going to have the leg up, Jordan James, to start, and he'll be back out there. Maybe when he comes back, he'll be wearing a non-contact jersey or something, so he won't be able to work on pass protection per se, but he will be able to work on running routes and different things like that. And usually, from my own medical knowledge, fractures usually take roughly 6 weeks to fully heal. So coming back with a flak jacket after 2 to 3 weeks, 3 more weeks on top of that, that's not even going to lead us into the season. So he should be totally healthy once the season starts. Crack Rock, if you guys consider him a source or not, whatever you guys think, I like to read what he has to say. I think he does have some inside sources, but basically Malik Neighbors will be available week 1 is what he said. Believe it if not or not, but I from the videos, I do actually believe that he's going to be that. I'm going to skip the Ryan Flournoy, because everybody knows how I feel about him. I think he's really good. Surgery's on the table for Ricky Pearsall, so we already know that. And then I said perhaps Deebo Samuel is of interest for the 49ers now, because Kittle and Jusic were lobbying, and then lo and behold, not too long after that, Deebo Samuel did actually sign with the team. Nick Wagoner, from The Athletic, he posted that, hey, the team believes that Dejon Stribling would slot in at the F role, which is the slot role, if Pearsall is out, with Demarcus Robinson and Christian Kirk at the Z. But, as we know, they've signed Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel used to play the Z for the team. So now, obviously, I think that he's going to be the Z receiver for the team to start, and then we'll end up seeing how the rotation ends up working out for the team. Yeah, Ricky Pearsall is undraftable right now. I just want everybody to know that. Kevin O'Connell, from day one of camp, was staying true to his word, keeping things roughly 50-50 between Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy. I still expect Kyler Murray to win that job, and it sounds like things are trending more towards Kyler Murray in day 2, and day 3 is, I believe, today, so I don't have an updated report just yet. Dejon Stripling continues to look good by all reports and is catching passes from Brock Purdy. Again, how many times do I need to say it? I think he's a good value where he's going right now, just simply by saying, hey, this guy's going to be a pass catcher in a dynamic offense. From The Athletic, about the Carolina Panthers, there was some chatter about less Tet McMillan slot reps because of the Chris Brazzell injury. Chris Brazzell's out for the season. And then Xavier Legette is now the favorite for wide receiver 3. I'm not really worried about Xavier Legette. I don't think he's really that talented, and don't think that he's going to take anything away from these other guys, McMillan and Coker. So actually, this is a great thing for Tet and Coker, but at the same time, not having those slot reps for Tet, just kind of like, it would have been nice to be able to get more of those. He's still going to get some. It's not like he's not going to play in the slot ever, but I don't think that he will tick up to like a 30% slot rate. I think he'll stay where he was, closer to like 20%. So just limits him a little bit. Day one, Zay Flower. Day one of training camp, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman did well. Lamar did a 360 spin and darted down the sidelines, and players were saying he looked fast and explosive. I think that's important because we saw what he looked like when he came back from injury last year, and he was limited as a runner. And now it sounds like he's back in action, doing all the stuff that he can do. And I'm pumped about that. Moving forward, let's go. Some good notes on Adam Randall, Jacoby Lane, and Devontae Walker. And I didn't see anything about Elijah Surratt, but basically, Jacoby Lane had some good catches. Devontae Walker was making some catches in traffic. And then on top of that, seeing things about Adam Randall looking kind of explosive and doing well in practice. Adam Randall's in that running back 3 battle with Rasheen Ali, and I fully expect him to actually win it, just given kind of like how all of that transpired. This was big. Joe Burrow did an interview and talked about Chase Brown, and there's been more on top of this that we'll get to from Dan Pitcher about Chase Brown as well. But when you kind of build the story together, which is what I'm trying to do for you guys, Joe Burrow basically called Chase Brown an every down back, and that he shouldn't leave the field. He said he does everything. He can protect. He trains as a receiver all offseason, and you wouldn't know he was a running back. You don't have to take him off the field. You can build packages for him in different places. Guys, I'm starting to tick Chase Brown up my rankings a little bit. Someone reached out and was wondering about Saquon versus Chase Brown, and we'll get to Saquon here in a bit, but I'm now very questionable in that space. And I know that can be bold because that's probably a 5 slot difference. But I'm starting to believe in this Chase Brown thing. Burrow also said this about Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. He said, obviously we're going to try to get the ball in number 1's hands, number 1 being Jamar Chase, as many times as we can. But I think a close second is Chase Brown, just because of how explosive he is and the things that he can do with the ball in his hands. You've got the trust of QB1. You're going to be the featured back. That is all good. Joe Burrow also talked about being under center. He said, we haven't done it quite as much over the last several years, and we'll see what we evolve into this year, but if that's what's needed, that's what I'll do. Doesn't sound like he really wants to do it, but I do think that the coaches want to do it, and they see Eric All as kind of the key that can unlock the fact that they can have a reasonable threat. Reasonable threat meaning a guy who can pass catch and run route. Run routes, pass catch, and block in the run game, and kind of unlocks the ability to go under center so they can. And the only reason why they would go under center is so they can unlock play action and have a more dynamic run game as well. So being under center would help Chase Brown a lot. It would help the receivers a lot too. Nick Caserio talked about Tank Dell and his timeline to practice. He's probably got, another week or so here of work until we actually see him on a practice field. Yeah, he's probably going to come back, and Jalen Noel is probably going to come back roughly around the same time. And then we're going to end up seeing, can Tank Dell take a full practice load multiple days in a row on those legs? We saw the videos of him standing out, obviously, looked really good in the videos. And it's kind of the same with Malik Neighbors too. You do all these things, you need to be able to do it in multiple days, because that is really important to make sure that there's no swelling. Things that we saw from Ricky Pearsall. He practiced twice and then boom, knee flares up and now he's out for the season. I don't expect that to happen for these guys, but we never know until we hear, hey, this guy's practiced multiple times in a row and everything sounds good. Liam Cohen talked about Parker Washington. He did an interview with a local Jaguars beat. He said, if you look at him as a wideout on our team, Trevor's probably thrown to him and Strange the most. So thrown to, not throwing to. Of the guys that are on our roster currently, really confident in him and excited to see what he can do for us. Again, so many words from Liam Cohen, basically praising Parker Washington every chance that he gets. Parker Washington, I will get to this tweet as well, showing up to practice before anybody else, doing all of the little things that you would want to hear from a guy that you're hoping for a big season from, and a guy that needs a contract extension and other things like that. Ravens are running a lot from under center, doing outside zone, which is a change from last year where they were doing shotgun pistol heavy stuff. This should help the run game. It should help play action as well. So excited about that possibility. Brian Schottenheimer did a press conference, and he again started talking about Jaden Blue. He says he needs to take the next step, and I think he's going to do that. Going back to what he said in the offseason, where he basically said very similar things, and that Jaden Blue understands his role. Then he also talked about Ryan Flournoy, who, the special teams coach wants to play on special teams. And he basically said, absolutely not. He's too good. We can't have him play special teams, which is just a signal that, hey, this guy is locked in wide receiver 3. He's going to play a lot. He's going to be on the field a ton. And he's a good handcuff to George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb this season. Very talented player. Deshaun Watson, first practice, looked terrible, had a lot of 2 interceptions in a row, but he was the first team quarterback for that session. The next day, it was Shedeur yesterday. And Jerry Jeudy and Isaiah Bond were the first team wide receivers. Shedeur was with the second team, and he was throwing to KCC and Denzel Boston, which was the second team. We'll have more updates on that here in a bit. Todd Monken, he started talking about Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin's a guy that I'm really interested in targeting. I have that on the screen here as well. He talked about Harold Fannin. He said he's coming off of surgery. So yes, he had, I believe it was groin surgery this offseason. Basically said, he's a focal point in the offense. He has a strong work ethic. He's good at yak, and he's going to improve his route running and blocking and only get better. And I completely agree. Yak is the name of the game for him. He's kind of in that, he's better than Tucker Kraft when it comes to yak, in my opinion. Brett Whitefield actually said that on a podcast recently, who's an amazing talent evaluator. So I think that, that's probably a bold take, but then I think he has better route running chops than a Tucker Kraft. He's not a better blocker, so that obviously limits him in terms of what he can do. But I do think that he has some significant value where he's going in drafts right now. Monken also said in a separate interview that the rookies have to earn first team reps. So obviously, KCC and Boston being in second team, I'm not really taking that very seriously right now. The full story on Jalen Noel, he was catching passes and hurt his finger, and so he's fine. Yeah, he started out on NFI, but now he's, the story is he's going to be back soon. Shane Steichen was talking about Josh Downs. He said he can play inside and outside for us. The role is going to improve this season, which he's excited about. Again, this is like one of my, if I had to pick another flag plant, I think that Josh Downs is one of them. Even if they sign Keenan Allen, I'm not worried. The only reason why I wouldn't take him in like a best ball draft right now, if I was doing a portfolio based approach, is because if they do sign somebody who I think is potentially on the table, I think that his value will drop. And so I just want the cheaper price, even though I still think that he's going to have a very similar role, regardless if they sign somebody or not. Mike LaFleur spoke about Michael Wilson. He compared him to Puka and Robert Woods. And so I'm just kind of like juxtaposing that versus what he's, said about Marvin Harrison Jr. Camp day 1 for the Bears. Luther Burden was targeted a bunch, played slot as well as outside. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear him being in the slot. That's important to us. Rome Odunze looked great. I'm not really that worried as much as I was before about the foot. So everything seems to be going well there. The big question with him then is going to be how much load he can take on that foot over time. So I think that we are ready to go on that front with a Rome injury and all sorts of stuff there. And then I've got some information on Liam Cohen. I already did this one. We're gonna move forward. Do some retweets at night just to in the morning, just to make sure people are able to catch up on all the news. Some speculation here, but on Drake London, Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zaccheaus, and Zachariah Branch. Right now, Jahan Dotson is wide receiver 2, and he can line up on the outside, which means that London can then play the slot sometimes. And Olamide Zaccheaus is wide receiver 3 for now, and Branch is operating as wide receiver 4. Again, not something that I'm really that concerned about. We're at the beginning of training camp. Rookies, especially second-round rookies, third-round rookies, etc., are going to probably be lower on the depth chart. It takes time. He was more of a gadget player in college, so I could see him utilized in that role to start the season, and then work his way up and do more. And that's exactly what was said in this interview. I do think he's a good target late because, they don't really have anything else. And I like guys that get design touches sometimes just because they have the ability to do like a Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice type of thing where it's like, hey, this guy is just like a PPR scam and doing a lot. Josh Allen talked about throwing to DJ Moore. He said a lot of good things about him. Sounds like the Bills may have DJ Moore on the field nearly every down. They mentioned roughly like 80 to 90%, which is elite. Something they haven't done as much since having Stephon Diggs. It would be a big divergence from the wide receiver by committee that they've had from like 2025. But, I do see that as a very likely thing to happen. So I'm excited about the opportunity for DJ Moore. I haven't drafted a ton of him myself. I'm going to mix him in a little bit more. Again, I can see situations where he's the guy you need like later in the season. Do I think that he's going to get 1,300 yards like he has before? No. But that, I see him as a player that can he get 1,000 yards? Yes. Could I see myself slotting him in as a wide receiver 2 on some of my teams? Yes. So I want some exposure to DJ Moore for sure. Puka Nacua is just crushing camp. And he's doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things. He showed up to camp, even though he doesn't have a contract extension. He said he's going to play regardless. He's my wide receiver 1 for 2026 above Jamar Chase. I just think he has a higher level than Jamar Chase can potentially have this season. I don't think he's a better football player necessarily, but I just see some bigger upside for him. Just the way that they use him is always interesting. Eli Raridan is the tight end 2 on the early 53-man roster projection from Chad Graff. They haven't signed anybody, and he's operating in that tight end 2 situation and 12 personnel. He's operating in 12 personnel as well. So I think that he's in a really good spot right now. And it's, by all accounts, it sounds like he is making them think twice about potentially adding a veteran. So, I mean, dynasty asset for sure, because I think that he's in a situation where, Hunter Henry, we don't know how long he's going to be there. We don't know how long he's going to stay healthy. So I'm excited about Eli Raridan. Chad Graff had Kyle Williams not making the team. I do think he's going to make the team. He kind of said this earlier too in this thing. It would be a shocking cut. It's not. I don't think it's likely to happen, because I think what's going to end up happening is that they end up trading a receiver. It sounds like there's still some potential interest in trading Kayshon Boutte, which we'll get to later. So I think Kyle Williams will just stay on the team regardless, but it'll just be a matter of like math and how they move someone else around. Full scoop on Malik Neighbors' practice participation. He practiced for the first 20 minutes of practice. He participated in individual drills and ran routes on air without defense, and he looked good. He looked good in the videos that I saw too. There was some stuff that I was seeing where it looked like, he was not necessarily exploding out of his cut. And, that's a very like minute detail that I was kind of like seeing that just seemed a little bit different. But again, he has plenty of time to get, like, the fact that he was doing what he was doing compared to what our expectation was. I do expect him to be fine for week 1 based off the video. Doesn't mean he's going to be like fully elite by then. But at some point, I think that he could be fully elite again. There's a chat question about, and I'm going to have it pop up here, my rationale on why Keenan Allen wouldn't hurt Downs. He was a massive detriment to Ladd McConkey last season by taking so many slot targets. Was he more of a Herbert issue? It's a good question. I'm kind of leaning on what I heard from this podcast that I listened to from a Colts insider who was talking about, and I can, if at some point I'll like retweet it again. But I did tweet it originally. They talked about how whoever they sign, a Debo, who now is not available, or even Keenan Allen, that they would be more of like a third down, like pass catching role player, rather than like, hey, we're going to put them in all the time. I don't think they're going to take away significant snaps from a Josh Downs. I think if they're going to throw the ball, they'll put Keenan Allen on the field. And yes, that's another target earner, potentially. But I just believe in Josh Allen's talent. I don't think that, and the thing that I think most people are worried about is like route share. And I'm not worried about the route share is what I'm basically getting at. Yes, could it take away some targets? Yeah, I think that there's a little bit more like downside in terms of target share. But I'm not as worried about the long, I'm not as worried about the route share in general. We don't know the stat distribution for Cam Scatterbo and Darius Slayton, but they're both part of the first team offense, which we expected to have happen. What's up, Disbanded Brotherhood? Let's go. And then Tyrone Tracy caught a pass from Jackson Dart, so he's getting first team work too. I don't know how much, but I do think that Cam Scatterbo is going to get most of like the high value touches, touchdowns, goal line stuff, a lot of pass catching as well. Jackson Dart was also heavily under center. Jalen Hurts was heavily under center. These are things that we need to pay attention to because they're new things for these players. Trey Benson is back practicing. James Conner is still out. He's been out since then. And Kendrick Bourne is operating as wide receiver 3 for the Cardinals. Some things I'm just going to touch on quickly and not necessarily give like a full take on it. The Falcons are doing a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, which was reported earlier. Charlie Warner is the tight end 2. So if you just imagine like there's 5 players that can run an eligible route, and Charlie Warner is one of them, and Jahan Dotson or Olumide Zaccheaus is the other one. That just means the probability that Drake London or Kyle Pitts or Bijan Robinson, when they're in the game, is just so high that they're going to get the ball. So I'm expecting a ton of targets for those 3 this season, especially if they're going to operate in 12 and 13 personnel a lot. Jaden Blue Buzz, there's a lot on this, but he got a long run touchdown in practice. He got a screen pass that he took for 40 to 50 yards for a touchdown, and then he was getting the second reps at running back behind Javonte Williams. He also had first team reps. We'll get to that later. I do think he's a good dart throw late. We'll talk about that later again. Vivian Thomas rotated with the first team. Kamanungai was missing. Kamanungai also wasn't at practice today. So something I'm paying attention to, Salvin Ahmed was the guy that stepped up as that RB2 whenever Manungai was missing. I'm not huge into Manungai this year in general. Marshawn Lloyd took first team reps 2 days ago now. I'm trying to read this as of like the date that it was posted. The team wants to keep building his workload during camp. Jordan Love called him a special playmaker. He's in a battle with Chris Brooks, who's on NFI. So it's good to hear that he is, obviously taking advantage of those reps and getting some first team reps. Chris Rodriguez said that his plan is to be back for week 1. It sounds like they're going to ramp him and manage his workload during training camp. And I keep saying this, but it's good that Bashal Tutin's getting all these reps. I mean, it's just good. The coaches are getting an adequate way of being able to view his talent, see him out there. He's gaining the rapport. He's getting the steps down that he needs to get down. If he's a really good player and he's getting all of these reps and the offense is looking good, then there's going to be less of a role for Chris Rodriguez. That's just how these things work. So I'm very excited about the fact that Rodriguez is missing time because I know that opens the door for Bashal Tutin, who I am aggressively targeting. The Dolphins are going to establish the run. I think we already knew that. Kyler Murray and Jordan Addison spent 2 months doing pass catching drills and stuff during the offseason. I'm somewhat of a Jordan Addison fader. I've talked about this, but it is notable that they developed that rapport and that there's been some big plays in training camp with those two specifically. So something I'm just keeping my eye on to hear how things are trending there. Pitts, Fannin, or Kraft on the board. Who am I picking? Very good question. $1 million question for a lot of people, I think. I'm going to say Fannin. I just think that Fannin, and I know that the ADP between him and Tucker Kraft are very wide. I still think that Fannin's going to be the number 1 target in that offense this season. So that's basically what's leading me to that, even though, we say, hey, what's the number 2 target really worth in Cleveland versus the number 1 target versus the number 2 or maybe even number 1, who knows, in Green Bay. I just think that it's going to be more than enough yards, more than enough touchdowns, receptions, all sorts of different stuff that we saw at the end of the season last year. I expect a lot more of that for Harold Fannin. I think the tougher question is Harold Fannin versus Tyler Warren, and I'd pick Warren, but I think it's super close. And I know their ADPs are pretty far apart, but when I do my rankings, it will have ADP adjusted, it'll be ADP adjusted, but I'm big into Harold Fannin this year. I'm just going to put that out there. Other notes on the Giants. So Scatterbo was the first running back with the first team as we expected, and Isaiah Likely got a ton of middle of the field targets. I am targeting Isaiah Likely this year. I don't think the fantasy points ranks necessarily reflect it, but I do think that he is a good target because he's going to be a top 2 pass catcher, in my opinion, in this offense. Bucky Irving took first team reps and has no limitations per Todd Bowles. Just interesting. Something I'm really paying attention to there, and just want to hear more about how training camp goes with Bucky Irving in that role. Travis Hunter has been doing basically a 1/3 offense, 2/3 defense so far through 2 days of training camp. I didn't get the update of what happened today. I will check that and get back to you guys on that. But so far, it's been 1/3 offense and 2/3 defense. And we have a big update on him that's coming up soon. Yesterday, Parker Washington was the player of the day, basically at Jaguars training camp, and then even today, I think he was like listed as another like standout. So he just keeps doing great things. Guys, sometimes the team just tells us who the player is, and this is the player for the Jags, in my opinion. I talked about this already, but Bashal Tutin keeps getting all the first team reps with Chris Rodriguez limited and is taking advantage of his opportunities. Missing time creates a window for others. Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren are both getting first team reps as expected. Dowdle was first and for one day, and then Jalen Warren was first the other day. Again, I got some information from some sources that basically said Dowdle's probably going to do the early down and goal line stuff, and Warren's going to do pass down stuff with some like early down mix in. So I think it's going to be roughly a 50-50 split a lot of times in terms of opportunities. Jordan Tyson practiced in back-to-back days. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to hear. A guy that had hamstring issues. We want to keep tabs on, hey, is he practicing every single day? Like, is he out there? What's he doing? And it sounds like everything's going well. He scored a touchdown in this video too, which is great. I'm very much into Jordan Tyson, which I've talked about extensively in other podcasts as well. Brian Robinson missed time, and then he came back to practice, so I'm not worried about him. He's the clear RB2 for the Falcons. Rome talked about his foot. He said, hey, it feels amazing. And from all reports, it sounds like he looks explosive. There's still probably some elevated risk of him getting injured again, because like there's been some shifts in what his foot, like, I don't know all of the mechanics behind it, but from what I understand, that there's been some shifts within his foot. So there's some elevated injury risk, but for all reports, it sounds like he looks explosive again. He's doing well. So he's back on my list of draftable players. Originally I was feeding him, and now I'm like, okay, I can take him without worrying too much. Chris Brazel's out for the season. We talked about that already. Xavier Legette is going to operate as wide receiver 3 to start the season. Team could also add a veteran. The team thought that Ricky Pearsall could have his PCL heal on its own. The knee swelled after a few days in training camp, and then surgery seems somewhat logical because he already operated with this injured PCL last year, and we saw what that did to him. It zapped him of a lot of explosiveness. It also made him miss time, and then he wasn't playing full snap shares every single game. Why would you want to do that again for another season? Why not just get surgery? That's what I think is going to end up happening. They signed Deebo Samuel. That's your sign. Yeah, don't draft Ricky Pearsall. There's a lot of positivity around Jacoby Lane, but again, I think the big thing is that he got reps with Lamar Jackson. I guarantee you we're going to get something great about Elijah Surratt. We're going to get something great about Devontae Walker. What we really want to pay attention to is, are these guys catching passes from Lamar Jackson? Are they working in with the first team? Where are they slotting in? Are they the slot? Are they playing on the outside? What are they doing? And right now, it sounds like, at least I know that Jacoby Lane and Devontae Walker have taken reps with Lamar Jackson. I'm expecting at some point I will also hear the same thing with Elijah Surratt, and then I just want to know where they're aligning. This was big. Vrabel was talking about running backs doing pass protection, and he said, I love the way Rhamondre protects, and then boop, ... Travion continues to work on that. Rhamondre is going to be out there, guys. He is their running back 1. He should be drafted higher than where he's going right now. In addition, Mike Vrabel was asked about trading a wide receiver, and he basically just didn't dismiss it. He said he likes having depth, but if there's an opportunity to add draft capital or obtain another player, they're going to take that opportunity. And then there was some more information today about Kayshon Boutte still being available for trade. Vrabel also off the cuff mentioned opportunities for Rhamondre in the pass game when he was asked about A.J. Brown. Rhamondre is the RB1 on that team until further notice. There was an article on ESPN about the Titans pass catchers. It said that Wan'Dale was being highly targeted as a new wide receiver, highly targeted. He was the most targeted person at practice. Again, I think that's good because he's a new wide receiver to the team. Again, he is running the same offense that he was running before, which is great. Helps him acclimate quicker, but it's good to see that he's building a rapport with Cam Ward. There was a 3-week bonding experience with Cam Ward where all these guys got together and did pass catching drills and stuff. And the person that wasn't there was Calvin Ridley. I am not certain that he's going to make the team. Previous reports said that he's battling with Alec Imanor and Jameer DK for that wide receiver 3 role. And even if he gets it, I don't think he holds on to it. I think that we saw the bottom drop off and that he's just at that age cliff already. So I don't think that he's going to be worth anything this season. I wouldn't draft him. Josh Allen and DJ Moore. Buffalo Bills receiver DJ Moore caught 2 touchdown passes from Josh Allen on Thursday in Pittsburgh. It's good to hear. We want to hear that these guys are building a rapport. It doesn't mean that he's going to be an amazing player. It just means hey, things are clicking. We don't want to hear these things aren't clicking. And we want to, that's why I just post some of these things is so that I can hear and track and make sure that I know hey, what's happening here, Someone in the chat asked, sell Stribling. What format is the question? If you're talking about, I'll just address it in all formats. Dynasty, I think yes. I think that, it might not be a bad idea to sell him. I'm not huge into him as a talent. I just think that for this season specifically, I could see him do really nice things. In terms of redraft, I don't know what you're going to get by selling him right now. I would rather have him than a lot of players, to be quite honest, because I do think that he's going to have an opportunity in this team to do a lot of stuff. So I would probably want to keep tabs on him and keep him if I were you. Jadarian Price was finally the RB1, first person taking the running back reps at practice. And then Brian Fleury likes to prioritize running backs in the pass game. Darnold specifically mentioned Jadarian Price and Holani catching passes and wanting to get them the ball in the pass game. Let's see if it continues, right? Is that just a one-day thing? Is it a multiple-day thing? We need to hear. The bet with Jadarian Price was never that he wasn't going to be the starting running back. There was always a small chance, but it was always likely that he would be the starting running back. The question is, how much does George Holani and Emmanuel Wilson and Zach Charbonnet eventually end up playing? And we don't know that answer. And I'm not sure that we're going to get that answer, but I do think that George Holani will play a third down role at the very least, pass catching, pass protection, because the team has done that with him in the past. And it sounds like, by all accounts, that they like him in that role, which just limits some of Jadarian Price's upside. And there's also been chatter about Emmanuel Wilson factoring in at the goal line, and Charbonnet potentially when he comes back, a goal line and pass catching. I just think that we may not see the full upside of the situation this season. Debo will be the Z for the 49ers. I think he's interesting. I mean, I'm not not aggressively targeting him by any means. I just think that, again, the coach knows how to use him. And he's going to be in the same role he was in before. Is there a chance that he does something incredible? He had some drop off last year, but also that Commanders offense wasn't utilizing him the right way. On top of that, there was a lot of games that he was playing with Marcus Mariota. So I do think that there is an opportunity for him to be a 700, 800-yard receiver if he plays enough. And that's a significant value versus where he's going right now. He might have some big weeks, and who knows, Mike Evans could get hurt, and then they need to focus on him as opposed to some of the other receivers. The answer to me is 49er receiver. Yes, I do want some 49ers receivers. Dejon Stribling is a full-time player, faster than anyone expected. This came out before the Debo info, but I do think that he's going to play the slot role for the team often, and then probably rotate at X and Z sometimes as well. Some buzz around Brennan Thompson, who had a good practice with Justin Herbert. He's battling for, and the note says that he's battling for snaps with Trey Harris, and that Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey are top 2 wide receivers, which I do believe is the case right now, at least. So, just something to watch. I'm not like going to overreact to one day of practice with Brendan Thompson. Like, great that he had a great day. Great that he was doing it with Justin Herbert. We need to hear it more consistently. And then we can evaluate from there. This isn't something where I'm going to react to right now. If I'm in a dynasty league, sure, pick him up if it's like end of bench or whatever. But it's not something where I'm going to draft him and redraft right now. This is this like amazing interview that Liam Cohen did with these people on 1010 XL, which I'm scouring the internet for everything, guys. But basically, he called Bashal Tutin an all-purpose back and called him next up. Said he was good in the red zone. Talked about how good he looked on screens last year. Said he needs to work on pass protection and he needs to not worry as much about ball security. That he wants him. The reason why he doesn't want him to worry about ball security because he wants him to go and use his 4.29 speed. I think he's 4.29. 4.29 speed and like go attack. He does also mention like he's versatile, that he can run around guys, but he can also run through you, and he's not afraid of contact. A lot of great things that he said about him. So I'm a Bashal bull, but I think it's warranted. Right. Are there more chat questions? Yeah, this is a question about Brennan Thompson, so I think this makes sense to go over right now. The camp stuff does look good. I think Trey Harris is also a deep threat. I think having some, years of experience in the NFL, being a blocker, the fact that he was a good blocker, and Mike McDaniel being from that Shanahan tree where they appreciate stuff like that is also valuable. Brennan Thompson will probably rotate in somewhat in the offense. That's just what the Shanahan offense does. McDaniel Shanahan version does. Even like Tyreek and Waddle didn't get like full route shares. So I do think that they'll kind of like rotate in over time. I'll answer the other questions after I get through some more content here. Offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher on Chase Brown played himself into a role that deserves us featuring him in what we do. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown are guys they believe put them in positions to win games. I'm starting to believe that the second half of 2025 was not an outlier, that they are going to feature him. I am starting to think I need to move him up my ranks quite a bit right now, above guys like, I'm starting to think I want to move Saquon down, and I'm starting to think I want to move Chase Brown up. And I had someone ask me a question about Chase Brown versus Saquon, and I talked about this earlier. I'm starting to lean Chase Brown because I start thinking about it. I'm like, if he has a full role, or if he's a featured role in this offense, I think this offense is going to be better than the Eagles offense. And I believe in him as a pass catcher. I'm just not getting the same like vibes out of the Saquon situation right now, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning. Kenneth Walker took a screen to the house yesterday. The feedback from training camp has been that the team does want to like enable the screen game a little bit more, enact that for the season, and something that they haven't done as much lately for the running backs. So that's exciting because Kenneth Walker, obviously very dynamic. He can take things like that to the house. I think it elevates his ceiling a little bit more. The Commanders are still monitoring the Stephon Diggs situation per John Keim. He believes Diggs is the only receiver that makes sense for the team. I still think that he's going to be on the team. I think we may get that notification any day now. It could be a week. It could be within the next day or two. Who knows? But I do think it is likely that he will sign there still, just given everything that I've heard. So I am excited about that right now. Elikon Manor was lining up at X with Calvin Ridley missing training camp. I don't think that Manor looked great last year. There were times where he looked all right, but he didn't look great last year. But he was a prospect that I thought was pretty interesting coming out. I do think that offense in general was just absolute garbage, so I'm willing to potentially strike it from the record. He was also coming off of injury. Offense was bad in general. I think he fits more naturally at receiver than DK does. Just based off the film, like watching DK, it was a lot of like, okay, he's in motion, and they're trying to get him to do like little like gadgety things like pop passes and handing it off to him and stuff. And I just don't like, that's not what a real receiver does. There's a chance that he improves and that he can do all that stuff, but that's just what I saw. And they used him primarily in the slot last year, based off of my film evaluation at least. And so I think that Imanor makes more sense to be out there with Wandale specifically and Carnell Tate. So that's kind of what I'm leaning as something that happens if Calvin Ridley isn't that outside receiver. This was interesting, and I want to make sure I take a moment to talk about it. But John Kime was talking about why being able to catch passes as a running back isn't the only thing that matters. So it's like, yes, we don't want you to have stone hands. That is a requirement. Good thing that like Jadarian Price can catch passes. You need to be able to run routes and time things effectively. Sometimes you are going to be a decoy. You're going to be the guy that takes a linebacker to move to the flat and open up something, a little hole in underneath. And there's timing that matters with that. There's just like route combinations, and there's ways that you need to run routes that are important. And it takes reps to get there. That doesn't mean Jadarian Price can't do it. It just takes a lot of time and practice. It doesn't sound like he's had that practice before as much because he wasn't operating as primary running back at Notre Dame. So, like similarly with Corey Krosky-Merritt, like he missed a full year of football. And then last year was he comes back playing in the NFL, and he got some reps, and now they're trying to build that up for him. Let's see what he can do. I want to hear the practice reports. I want to hear that he's being able to do all that kind of stuff. There's this long post from Seaside, not Seaside Joe, Buckeye Joe or something like that. But anyway, he's like not an insider, but he does like log stuff from practices. So I like, he did basically a play-by-play of what the Bucs were doing in team drills. And it seemed like Bucky Irving was the first running back with the Bucs first offense. And then Kenneth Gainwell also rotated in with the starters, which is exactly what we thought would happen. And then that Bucky and Gainwell were both getting 2-minute drill work, getting pass catching work. So it sounds like it is truly a 1A, 1B. Like you could put him in or you could put this guy in. Let's see how it ends up playing out. I mean, I would assume that Bucky's going to get the RB1 quote unquote role to start the season at the very least. It's just a matter of how much work Kenneth Gainwell also gets and then how much Bucky's able to carve out. The team has said that they want to limit his load a little bit because they saw him wear down so much. So let's see if he can actually take a big touch count. I'm in the void. People are asking, bro, where are you at? I'm in the void, man. That's where I'm at. I'm in the middle of nowhere. No, I said this at the beginning. If you do go back and listen, I'm in my car right now. I'm at like a lake house, and there's not another room for me to do this, and I've got kids sleeping and stuff, so I'm trying to just do this for the public wherever I can, basically. Thoughts on Caleb Douglas? I'll address that later. I don't have too many thoughts right now. I do think that he's going to end up, well, I'll just address it now. I do think he'll end up playing a lot this season. I'm not like a big Caleb Douglas bull, but I don't know like that I'm going to be a bull on any of the Dolphins receivers. And I think that he's more likely to be playing at the end of the season more than like Jalen Tolbert and some of these other guys. So I feel like he's worth a dart throw. And, sometimes we evaluate guys and we think that they're not that great, but then they end up being good. So, I mean, you could do worse with like a end of roster like pick. So that's my opinion on Caleb Douglas right now. Matching other reports, it seems like the Ravens are more likely to count on their young wide receivers, Devontae Walker, Elijah Surratt, and Jacoby Lane versus signing a meaningful veteran. Yeah, they're going to go into it with these guys right now. It doesn't sound like they're interested in Diggs, so you can confidently draft one of these guys and feel decent about the fact that they're not just going to get their spot replaced. And you can also draft Rashad Bateman, because I don't think his spot's getting replaced right now either. Second option in the pass game for the Commanders could be Chig Okonkwo. And then Ben Standig also said, if they don't bring in Stephon Diggs. And I think it's pretty likely that it would be Chig as the second option in this offense if they don't bring in Stephon Diggs. Bills training camp, it sounds like the running backs are being utilized in the pass game more often, which is what we thought would end up happening based off all the feedback about what people are saying Carmichael might bring to the table. That influence that he brings, we just don't know if it's going to be specifically for James Cook. I do think it will be. Or if it'll be for Ty Johnson or Ray Davis or whoever else. So right now we just need to hear, are they using James Cook more in that role, or are they still using a Ty Johnson in that role? I think it'll be more for James Cook, actually. A lot of great words on Luther Burden that we just keep hearing. The drum beat's getting loud. They said that Luther Burden was there all summer fighting to get guys to come in and throw to him. It's exactly what you want to hear, especially for a guy that fell to the second round because there was some concerns about, personality or something. The talent was there. He's been the most targeted wide receiver at training camp so far per reports. Rome's also looking good. I think the vibes are good for this offense in general. Luther Burden's the way that I prefer to play it. Shador was QB1 yesterday. Yeah, yesterday in day 2. And it sounds like Denzel Boston, KCC, and Isaiah Bond were getting targets from him. So I guess that would presumably be first-team reps, whereas Boston and KCC the day before were getting second-team reps. Jaden Blue worked in with the first team just like he did in day 1. So day 2 also working with the first team. It sounds like Pacheco is splitting reps. Isaiah Pacheco for the Lions is splitting reps with Sion Vaki while Jahmyr Gibbs is out right now. I don't think that Isaiah Pacheco is a guaranteed lock to be this really high upside handcuff. So I'm not drafting him right now. I actually haven't drafted much of him. I'm not drafting much of him. I do think that Sion Vaki would probably get pass down work at the very least, and we don't know what else. They could also sign somebody if James Conner gets cut, or Michael Carter has a history with Drew Petzing. We just don't know what the situation is. D'Amico Ryans was talking about a year 2 jump for Jaden Higgins. He was talking about moving around the formation, got him some slot reps. It was a lot of strong praise, in my opinion. I do think that, especially in best ball leagues, if you're doing something like that, correlating him with CJ Stroud is a really nice way to play it from my purview, because if Jaden Higgins has a step up type of season, a smash type of season, it likely means that CJ Stroud is also doing very well because of that, right? Because Nico Collins is obviously a very elite receiver, and then that means that a secondary receiver is also doing well. So I think that means that then CJ Stroud would have a nice season as well. Jack Besh and Dante Thornton are both getting first-team reps as wide receiver 3 for the Raiders. It sounds like Jack Besh has the lead there, but we don't know. They're going to do a lot of 12 personnel. How much is that wide receiver 3 going to be on the field? Jack Besh is the one that I'm more interested in because I think he has more dynamic game, can do a lot more on a football field, but, we need to see and hear more. There's always a chance that Jack Besh actually ends up being the best receiver on the team too, in my opinion, just because Trey Tucker is more of a deep threat. Jalen Naylor has some good qualities, but I'm still not fully sold on him. So there's always a chance. Kayshon Boutte is still available for trade. I talked about that earlier. So I think that he's a good draft target because he's probably the wide receiver. I think that he's going to be the third best target. I think that he will operate as the wide receiver 3 for the Patriots. And if he goes to a different team, that's his floor, in my opinion, that he would be the wide receiver 3 for that team. And so he could be the wide receiver 2 for a team. This was big. I was listening to the Go Birds podcast, and they were talking about Tank Bigsby and had a lot of great things to say about Tank Bigsby. But the big thing that stood out to me was that him and Saquon Barkley are actually splitting first team reps right now. I do want to say that I don't think that it's worth like overreacting to that kind of information at the moment. I think the thing with that situation is like we just never know if they're like limiting Saquon's reps or what they're trying to do. It's early in training camp. I do think sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. I think that this team could operate in a situation where they want Saquon to do like, instead of like 80% of the work, he's getting 70% or 65% of the work. And that would just kind of like tick away at him. And then on top of that, my own personal concerns, which I had Matt Waldman give his opinion as well on this. I don't know that this is a great scheme fit for Saquon Barkley. It requires the running back to be able to make more decisions in the run game as opposed to, and reacting as opposed to like there's a hole, go through it. I mean, I think that fits Tank Bigsby's game more than it fits Saquon. Not saying that the team is going to not put in Saquon. I still think that he'll be like the lead back. I do think that there's a little bit, what I'm basically getting at is I think there's a little bit more risk, especially with the scheme change. O-line is getting older. I've talked about how the O-line went to get stem cell treatment for Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Lane Johnson has missed time over the past couple of years. I just think there's a lot of risk in this like Philly situation where now I'm starting to lean a little bit heavier into what I just talked about, which was Chase Brown. Oh, also, I think Tank Bigsby is like one of the best handcuffs you can have out there right now. Mike McCarthy talked about Roman Wilson and Jeremy Bernard battle. He said it's more of a competition for opportunity. Their roles are there because both those guys have shown in the spring they can play at all three positions. We haven't seen anything out of Roman Wilson in his career, and usually by now you'd see like a glimpse from a receiver, even if it's a later pick, like some glimpse. And so my bet here is on Bernard by the end of season at the very least. And I don't think that either of these guys are going to be fantasy relevant, but if they are relevant, it's more likely that it would be Jeremy Bernard because we just don't even know what he is yet. Meka Egbuka is playing the primary Z, as we know. We've known that. And Zach Robinson is moving him all around the formation. People commented on this and said, hey, isn't that like very common for a Z receiver? Not everywhere. So I think it's valuable information to know. It's common in the Zach Robinson offense. It's common for all of the McShanahan offenses, but not in every offense. So it's good to know that they're moving him, having him do like motion and putting him in situations where he's running around the formation and then, getting into his route. That was everything from last night. Now we've got this morning to go through. Jaden Blue, again. Oh, no, that was all from yesterday. I tried to like wrap that up. Kayshon Boutte, unprompted, talked about potentially being somewhere else. He says, my attitude is we all hear a lot of stuff that's going on. My main focus is just I'm here today. My feet are here today. I'm somewhere else next week or the week after. That's kind of what it is. That's part of the business. I'm not taking it day by day and not thinking about what's next. Sounds like a guy who's fine with being wherever and doesn't mind being traded. And I think it's still likely that he does get traded based off of what I read earlier. Jaden Blue alternated with Javonte Williams with first team reps. This was kind of planned. The team wants to give Javonte a little bit of a break in training camp in general. They talked about that earlier in the offseason during OTAs. So I'm not saying like, hey, this is going to be a split. What I do think is happening is they're trying to audition Jaden Blue to have a more complementary role in this offense. Say 5 to 10 touches a game, just depending on how the game flow is working and whether he gets targeted in the pass game or not. If Javonte got hurt, would he be a 15-plus touch guy? I don't think that's the case. I think they would probably find a way to get Phil Maffa or Malik Davis or even a guy that they sign off the street to potentially be involved as well. But I think he could elevate to like a 12-touch in a good situation, 12-touch type of spot, which is valuable for fantasy, especially when you've got a game breaker who's doing a lot of that in the pass game. I think he's a good dart throw at the end of drafts right now. And also, I could always be wrong. and maybe he does get 15 plus touches. I don't think it's the case, but we're talking about late round picks. A report by Tyler Drake about the Cardinals potentially taking a similar approach at running back with year one, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, comparing that situation to Jeremiah Love and Tyler Algier. He says Love will handle the bulk of the carries, but may not be overloaded. I think that's actually somewhat likely. I mean, we've seen this happen a decent amount with recent first round running backs. Situation where it's like not 100%. It's like 60-40 to start, and then it grows to be like 70-30. He's going to, if I had to guess, he would get a lot of the pass down stuff. And then goal line, I could see it go either way, really. And you know, sometimes you want to prop up your star running back that you know is going to be your star for the future. And also, if he shows out, like, are they really going to put in Tyler Algier all the time? I don't think so. The main thing here to me is, like, this is an offense that doesn't project very well. I don't think that they're going to be good. And I do think that he's going to split a little bit more than you want. And so I'm just not, like, very interested in taking him right now. I think he's a great dynasty asset, but I just feel like, you know, if I'm matching this up with like underdog ADPs, I like the running backs in like round 5 more than I like the value of that versus taking Jeremiah Love in round 2 or 3 right now. I'm not going to talk about defense stuff on this. There was another hell of a day for Parker Washington at practice today. Great. We'll talk about it again in a second. Bashal Tootin, by all accounts, continues to stack practices while Chris Rodriguez is not doing team drills. Tootin took a pass from Trevor Lawrence for a touchdown in team drills today. Again, I'll talk about that in a second. People probably don't remember this because I don't even know how old people are, but Curtis Martin had a Hall of Fame speech where he talked about what Bill Parcells said to him. And I think this always sticks out with me, and this is why I say it matters that Chris Rodriguez isn't on like practicing as much right now with getting team drills. He said, "You should never come out of the huddle because you never know who is going in the huddle," and that always stuck with me. It stuck with me in my own career for football and anything else. I'm a yes person. I try to do everything myself. And the reason why I feel that way is because, again, if you're not out there and someone's looking good, they're getting that opportunity, and people are gonna feel comfortable with them with those reps. So that's kind of how I see this Bashal Tootin thing working out, especially if he does look good. And by all accounts, first couple of days, he does look good. CeeDee Lamb was getting the early work before Cowboys practice. He was the first person out on the field doing the jugs machine. I still think he's the Cowboys wide receiver 1 for this season. You know, there's been chatter about that, but I think, why would you not want the top receiver from a top offense with a good quarterback? Jaden Higgins made a tough catch on Derek Stingley yesterday. He doesn't sound like he got separation on that play, but I do like the fact that CJ Stroud was like, hey, this guy's not even really open, and we've got the top cornerback going against him, but I'm still going to throw him the ball. To me, that means something. That means there's a rapport, chemistry that's being built. I like to hear that. Chris Rodriguez, as I said, is not practicing in team drills. Tootin got 7 out of 9 carries with the first team. LaQuint Allen got the other 2. So that's basically a bell cow role for Bashal Tootin. That happened yesterday. Today at Bears practice, it was a big day for Colston Loveland. Roma Odunze had 2 deep receptions. And Monungai was missing, and Salvin Ahmed was taking on that RB2 role. I'm keeping an eye on how the roles are being described between Rome, Loveland, and Burden. Again, I think that Burden is going to play the short and intermediate role, Loveland short intermediate, and Rome is going to be intermediate to deep more often than not. And that scares the crap out of me from a fantasy angle. I know like the price is adjusted to where like basically 2-ish rounds different between Rome and Luther Burden, but if we're talking about who can smash fantasy, it's going to be the short route depth guy, the guy that we said earlier was rotating into the slot, the guy that's doing the yak stuff, the guy that's also having all the praise from the coaches. I think it's going to be Luther Burden season. Of course, like that's the initial plan. Injuries happen, all sorts of stuff happens. I would rather bet on Luther Burden if I'm playing this offense right now. There was some chatter about that will likely include him using him as a receiver even more in the new system after he was able to haul in 55 catches for 346 yards and 5 touchdowns as a rookie. This was written by Adam Hill in the Las Vegas Journal. And they were talking about Ashton Jeanty. I do think that Ashton Jeanty had a nice like receiving profile. He wasn't like an elite receiver in terms of like actually evaluating the talent. But that there's an opportunity for him to potentially be the second leading receiver on the team this season. And I think that's really exciting. I wouldn't bet against that potentially happening for him. If I'm I guess I am a betting man because I'm doing fantasy football, but yeah. Okay. So I asked this reporter for the Jags. I asked him, here we can go to the question. When Travis Hunter is on the field on offense, is he in the slot or is he out wide? Which receivers are on the field with him? Are they giving him a full route tree? I wanted to know like the details of what is going on with Travis Hunter. And he got back to me. He said, we have really seen him in such limited reps so it's tough to give an answer for in terms of grouping. So like who else is on the field? When we have seen him, he is focused on working out wide. Huge news. And the routes we have seen have been down the field, not gadget stuff. So he's working as a real receiver. He's working out wide. The person that's playing in the slot is Parker Washington. That's the reason why this is huge news to me, because last year, Travis Hunter was operating as the slot receiver. Now he's operating out wide. That means that he could be taking snaps more from Brian Thomas or from Jacoby Myers. I think it would mostly, in my opinion, it would probably be Jacoby Myers because what it does is it enables Travis Hunter to operate in kind of a dynamic role where he could do short stuff, he could do deep stuff, he could do intermediate stuff, and then also allows Brian Thomas to operate in like whatever other role too. Again, Travis Hunter isn't going to play like a ton of offense all the time. So, but it is nice to hear that he may not take reps as much away from Parker Washington when he's on the field. I don't think that he'll be in like 2 wide receiver sets that often. So it is good to hear. And I think that helps the like wide receiver rotation information, that I think that Parker Washington can get a route share that's enough to be really valuable in fantasy this year. We hear that there's better tempo getting in and out of the huddle quicker and to be quicker as a point of emphasis from the Packers this offseason is very consistent with what I read earlier in the offseason, which leads to when teams do that, when they're playing faster, they're not going to rotate players as often, right? So you're not substituting out guys because that slows you down. So that means that you're going to probably see Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, and Matthew Golden on the field more often, running more routes, something that the Packers receivers have not done as much in the recent seasons. And then I've also heard that they want to pass the ball more, that they're a little bit concerned about what their defense is going to look like to start the season without Micah Parsons, that they want to lean on Jordan Love a little bit more. They feel like he's ready. I think that the way that I like to play this offense right now is through Jaden Reed. I think that he'll have more routes run than he previously had per game at least. And I think that he's the most dynamic receiver that they have. So I'm really excited about his opportunity this season. We keep hearing great things about Cyrus Allen. I'm keeping an eye on it, but also knowing that we've seen this story happen plenty of times with the Chiefs, where it's like Justin Ross or someone else that stands out for a couple of days in training camp, and then we get all up in arms. So just something to watch for now. And you can add him in Dynasty last like pick or whatever, but I'm not recommending in best ball at the moment or in redraft. Yeah, I'm also not recommending redraft right now. Parker Washington had a hell of a day in practice. Wash, rinse, repeat. Another terrific practice for Parker Washington. I'm all in. Are there any other chat questions I'm going to try to answer before I go? I don't see anything else. So it seems like that's it. Another edition of Tight 10. Follow me on X at Denani Zane if you aren't already. If you are following me, thank you. I just hit 50,000 followers. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. So for the Tight 10, for the cut up, it's Zane Denani. Thanks, guys.